Let's go.
Awesome. Let's do it. Thanks to producer Christian getting us all set up on here. Welcome back again to Against the Spread College Football Edition. I am back. I was down bad, sick last week, pretty much for about 10 days in a row, dude. It's pretty gruesome, pretty bad. So
What'd you have? Just like a little winter cold or COVID or?
well, I have like pretty bad asthma, so it was just like upper respiratory infection that just like hit me hard. So some of that stuff happens sometimes. So we pulled through the punches. My boys kind of held on to the show for me. So thank you guys for that.
I don't know if I had control of the show last week. Brennan was on a tirade.
Yeah. Sometimes you just
I expected it.
Sometimes you gotta let it loose. College football, full of emotions.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad I wasn't here because I probably would have.
It would have just been you two screaming, fighting at each other.
Just would have been a battle.
I think I would have just stated some facts that would have shut him up quick, but he wouldn't have been ready for that. So, so a lot of stuff happened this past week, man. Specifically, sorry for Brennan. Saban has retired, and that came as a pretty big shock to everyone, including myself, because watching Pat McAfee every week, every day, and seeing him on there and talking about he's not retiring, feels like he can go, a couple more years. I think that you could kind of tell that he was having some trouble this year just by, I think earlier in the season you saw it, and then near the end of the season, I don't think you could see it as much, but I think it was a lot more grueling on him this year than it ever has been. And that takes into effect of his age. I mean, talk about that. I mean, his age is so high up there. You don't really see college coaches coaching that long anymore, and especially someone like him as the GOAT. I would have thought he could have coached 20 more years. Whenever you see somebody as like a GOAT, a favorite player, coach, any of these things, you never see them retiring. You're just like, oh, they're always going to do this. But the simple fact is, that's not going to happen. So he does stay in Alabama. I know he already said on an interview he's going to have an office in Alabama still, in the facility. He's going to be able to still talk to players, still keep those relationships going. I don't know if he's going to help with recruiting. What his role is really going to be, I just know he's probably going to be like an associate coach. And he's probably going to help with like analysis on defense and that aspect of it, which is what you would expect him to do still. So that's kind of what we have, first of all, just off the rip. And then I kind of want to go into his predecessor, but his, I guess, replacement, and that would be Kalen DeBoer from Washington. At first, when I heard the hire, I was a little reluctant to accept it because I was like, all right, well, I think this guy is a good coach. I think he's gone through all the way from the bottom of the bottom.
Or something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy to watch someone like that work their way up, going from those bottom schools, going to finally getting to Power 5 and going to Indiana, getting a coach at Washington, having such a successful year, and now he's the front runner for Alabama. Like, if Saban retired last year, he would not have been the head coach for Bama this year or last year, right? But since he had such a promising year and 2 years really back to back, it's all about timing, guys, right? So every time a coach retires, it's all about timing. Who is the hottest coach right now? Who is the guy that's doing the best? And I don't think he was number one on their picks, right? I think that for sure they called Kirby Smart and Dan Lanning before anybody.
Yep.
And I think it was more courtesy call to Kirby and just being like, hey, dude, like, this is open. If you want it, of course you have it. And it was more probably Kirby saying, no, I'm good. Thanks, though. And then Dan Lanning, it was a call to him. And I think he was probably teetering at first. I think if anybody's not teetering on that decision, I think they're lying, right? So I think he definitely teetered on it for a couple days and or a day or two, and finally came out with like, okay, well, I'm not going to be the head coach. Obviously, he released that big.
Came out with that corny ass video, man.
That video. Yeah, well, you do. In all honesty, though, everyone says it's corny, and I do agree with you a little bit on the corniness, but it helped recruiting more than anything. I think if you're, which is why they got that, they got the receiver from Texas A&M, Ever Stewart, because I think that's why they got him 100%, because your coach is going to be staying there. You don't have to worry about that. Plus, they have money from Nike. You're not going to have to worry about NIL there. They have money. The only thing is, how are they going to fare in the Big Ten next year? Whatever. But I think they're going to fare pretty well, probably top 2 or 3 next year. So that's a big development. Kane Womack, new defensive coordinator, was hired. He runs a 4-2-5 defense, pretty similar to what Nick Saban likes to run now. Everybody's liking the 5 DBs in the back, helping with this air raid, spread offense that everybody's trying to run now, RPOs, everything. So it's something similar to what he wants to run. We knew that DeBoer was going to bring his offensive coordinator and his defensive coordinator with him. He's done it for 16 years now with both of them. So you kind of expected it, which is a crazy stat, though, to bring those guys with you everywhere you've gone. But when hearing about T-Rob, who is the coach now at Georgia, co-defensive coordinator, turning down the position at Alabama, there were words of, okay, why? Why did he turn this down if he was going to be the sole defensive coordinator? Well, it turns out it kind of looked like Bama said, hey, or Kalen DeBoer said, hey, we're going to give you this title. We're going to give you the pay raise. You're going to have that. But you're going to run the defense that we want you to run, and you're just going to kind of be the face of the defense. I think he wanted more of a role, and I think Georgia gave him that role just a little bit more, and it worked with what his aspirations are right now. Not to just be the face of it, but to actually be involved. And I think don't get me wrong, I think he would have been involved at Bama. I just think that he felt more comfortable being there with Muschamp and Kirby. He knows those guys. He doesn't really know Kalen DeBoer. So although I think it is a pretty similar position, I think that he chose to go with Georgia because of that. But first of all, Brennan, I kind of want to hear your thoughts on Kalen DeBoer, your new head coach, and then also, like, what do you think about the defense coordinator, offense coordinator ordeal going on right now?
No, I mean, obviously everybody had what they wanted to say about the new hire, but realistically, there wasn't a person that we could have hired in the country that was going to ever replace Nick Saban. And unless, I mean, you want to throw in Kirby Smart in there, which obviously we knew wasn't going to happen. But man, I mean, like you said, coming out and getting one of the hottest guys in college football right now. He's a player's coach. He's young. The players love him. He's got a great attitude. And, to have the balls of steel to take on this position and be the guy that says, hey, I'm either going to be the one that continues this legacy or throws it in the trash, So, I mean, Alabama is one of the most historied college football programs in the country. So it's one of those positions that you kind of can't pass up on the opportunity, I think, if you get the opportunity to take it. And, I mean, you're looking at a guy that has a 104-12 win-loss record, which is pretty nuts. I know he was at Sioux Falls for a lot of that. But, right. I mean, to go from Indiana to go to a Washington team that was 4-8 the prior year, I think 11-2 his first season at Washington, beat Texas in the Alamo Bowl, and then the very next season takes him to the college football playoff championship, beats Texas in the playoff game, and then goes to the championship. Doesn't have a great game, but, I mean, talking about a guy who's shown what he's capable of. He's a freaking winner. So, I mean, I respect him. I'm excited for it. And then the overhaul we're bringing in from Washington. I mean, Ryan Grubb, offensive coordinator. This was a guy that Nick Saban tried to get last year as the OC, and he turned it down and stayed at Washington. So, I mean, kind of fits in perfectly that he's coming with his head coach already. And then Kane Womack. I mean, Kane Womack's a guy that I like seeing hired because he does have ties to the Southeast. We have Kalen and Ryan Grubb coming in from the West Coast. We're bringing recruiting ties from there, and then now we're having, we're hiring these guys like Kane Womack and Maurice Linguist, both head coaches in FBS that just left a head coaching job to take a coordinator position and in a DB position. So both of those guys, Maurice Linguist, he was head coach at Buffalo. He has SEC ties. He spent time with A&M and Mississippi State, and he was a DB coach for the Dallas Cowboys for a little bit. So, I mean, that's a solid resume there to help bring in some recruits. Ties to Texas there. A lot of recruiting goes on there. So, I mean, and then additionally, he brought in wide receiver coach from Washington, Jamarcus Shepard, who just, had one of the best wide receiving cores in college football. So that's exciting. And then offensive line coach Scott Huff, who just coached the Joe Moore Award winner. So, a lot of good things that could have went downhill for Alabama. I think everything's fallen into place. It's going to be a completely new staff, but we're also retaining some key guys in Freddie Roach, defensive line coach, Robert Gillespie, running back coach, and then our strength and conditioning coach, David Ballou, which is huge. That guy is in the day-to-day operations with these players all day. So, we got some guys who know the standard, who can, help mold and merge these other coaches into the system. And I'm excited, man. I know we're going to take a minor step back, but I don't think it's going to be as bad. And I don't think Alabama fans should be too worried, especially going to the 12-team playoff. I think we definitely have the staff and the players to be able to stay in that top 12 range easily for next year.
Of course.
Yeah, and I think that kind of is what the question is, Brennan. Like now it's like, okay, how content with, I'd say like 9-3, 10-2 are Alabama fans going to be? Because that's good enough to get to the playoffs, but you got to recalibrate because it's not Saban. You're not going to go clock the shit out of every team, no matter what. Like you're lining up against LSU, Georgia, whoever. You're not going to go beat them consistently anymore. That's kind of what you're going from Saban to DeBoer, I think. And even, DeBoer probably can eventually get to that level. It's just, he's got to get up to speed with the SEC and everything else. And he did just go beat Texas, so. I think it's a really good hire. I think he was third on the list, but that's pretty damn good for third on the list, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, the guy was phenomenal. The guy was 10-1 against ranked teams in his tenure at Washington. That's pretty damn impressive. 3-0 against Dan Lanning, 2-0 against Sarkisian at Texas. The guy that Washington was constantly underrated. We sat here and trashed Washington on the show many a times, thinking they were going to lose these games, and Josh Pate says it best. It's like he's a coach that, constantly gets put under people and thinking, his teams are going to lose. And he beats rosters that are better than his with a not as good roster. So, that goes to show you what kind of coach he's capable of being.
Yeah, and if you can get the recruiting, like, say, help from Saban, or his coordinators are really good recruiters, I think, you'll be top 5 in class, top 7 even, and you're probably good enough to beat a lot of good teams in the SEC.
Now,
I think the coaching.
Go ahead, Zach.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the one question mark would be, how does Jalen Milroe fit into their heavy passing style offense? Which I will say
that's exactly what I was going to say. It's exactly what I was going to say. How is I just wonder now that, like, I think Penix is so much different than Jalen Milroe because he is so much more of a prolific passer, and he's so on target, and he rarely missed. And I understand he had a bad national championship game, but I think Michigan also dialed up some crazy shit against him. So you also have to think about that. But I don't know. I kind of think about where are we at with Jalen Milroe's progression and how much he's gotten, like how much better he's gotten in this past year. I understand it has been better for him, but it doesn't compare to how good Michael Penix was. So where do you sit on that? Is there going to be a competition this offseason where Jalen Milroe is not the for sure starter? Because I think with Nick Saban there, he was going to be the for sure starter next year. Now it's like, who runs the offense better?
Yeah. He was going to stick in Washington. If Saban stayed, he was staying in Washington. Who's his quarterback going to be? Will Rogers? Would you rather have Milroe or Rogers?
I don't know. Rogers runs that offense. I think Rogers would run that offense better. The offense that Washington would have wanted.
Air raid. But I think Milroe, you spread out the ball, and then he can still make shit happen with his legs. And then even Penix, a lot of the throws that he made were deep balls.
But you have to think about this though. They really dumbed down that offense for Jalen Milroe, and even like Nick Saban said that. That's not me just saying that. They dumbed down They dumbed down the offense for him because they said, this is too complicated. He's reading too many things. We need him to have 1 or 2 progressions and take off.
Yeah.
Because he was struggling with the 4 progressions or 3 progressions, and then he went just to 1. And even when he was just having 1, sometimes it was they knew exactly where he was going to go, and then he was throwing a pick. So he struggled with where's the good balance with how many times is he going to run in a game and how many times is he going to pass, or how many progressions they're going to have. There's multiple things that go into it. Now, I don't think Kalen DeBoer and his offensive coordinator are going to dumb it down for him. So who is the quarterback going to be going forward? Is Jalen Milroe going to progress and get better at reading defenses during this offseason? He had a whole year to do it, and he practiced against the ones at Bama, and he didn't do it. To my opinion, he didn't do it as well as he could have. So does this offseason help him in getting better at that to where he is going to play like a Michael Penix? And if he does get to that level, or even a fraction of it, I think it'll be pretty impressive, and I think that he will do well.
I think
Who's he gonna throw to now?
I mean,
don't get me wrong, buddy. They still got receivers. They might have lost a couple, but they still got guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big question mark for Alabama is too. I mean, we were ranked like 130th in sacks allowed last year out of 133 teams. Now, I'm not saying that was all completely our offensive line's fault. I think Milroe definitely needs to work on his pocket presence and stuff. But I mean, I think if you get an offensive line in front of him that has a little better pass protection, I think, and he has more time to look at things instead of having 2 seconds. I either got to throw this ball or run it immediately. I think that'll help him a lot. But I mean, you look at a guy like Michael Penix. He wasn't always this prolific passer. I mean, he always had a cannon of an arm. He was at Indiana. He was honestly more of a Jalen Milroe style before he tore both of his ACLs.
I agree.
He had to become a prolific passer to keep up with his game, and Kalen DeBoer was a part of that process.
You guys see Joseph's comment, half the snaps were on the ground. Makes it tough to read a defense.
No. See, I was thinking that, Joseph, it's a good point. But I also think that even with good snaps, he wasn't reading defense as well. But it does mess a quarterback up and gets them out of rhythm if every time. You're saying what? Like, okay, let's say if they had a 3 and out, 2 out of the 3 snaps were probably on the fucking ground or near it.
At his ankles.
They were at his ankles. Yep. So it makes it tough for him. I agree. That guy's gone though. But for him to start that whole fucking year, who's the backup, buddy?
That's what I'm saying. How does Alabama not have
the backup? Bro, the backup is not going to be good.
USF.
The backup's
fucking bad, man.
No, I'm talking about the backup center.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Who's the backup center? Because if that guy started all year, their backup center has to be fucking shit.
Yeah.
So I can go ahead and guarantee you, whoever is one of their 2 deep guards, maybe their 2 deep or 3 deep tackles, is going to start going at center right now and start practicing that, because there's no way that guy started all year with how he snapped the ball, and Nick Saban didn't have someone better than him behind him, or at least comparable. Because even if someone was maybe not as good with like run blocking or not as good as pass blocking, but they snapped it good every time, he would have started them, but he didn't. So it just made me think that guy, whoever was behind him, obviously wasn't worth a shit. So that's your main kind of problem, I think, that you have. But if it's okay with y'all, let's go ahead and go into the fallout kind of with Nick Saban's retirement. You have Kalen DeBoer leaving Washington, right? So Washington has to find a new coach. They go and get Jeff Fish, which I think is a really good hire. What he's done with Arizona has been really, really, really impressive. Dude, if I'm that Fafita kid, why not go to Washington with your coach? I don't understand that. That makes me think though that I don't know if he's loyal. Him and the wide receiver are staying. Their best wide receiver, right? So I don't know. Yeah. So I don't know if they're just loyal or if they are happy with the offense coordinator staying. Like, I don't know what it is. I'm not sure. Maybe they're happy with the new coach that came in. But
a tweet. There was originally a tweet, I think, right after their bowl game when they won, that was saying they had this many yards and they're going to enter the transfer portal, and it was like a fake tweet, one of those stupid Twitter like ML football or something like that. And they quote tweeted it, either him or his dad quote tweeted it and was like, this is what the media makes everything nowadays. Being loyal ain't shit. This, that, and the other. And I think he's a pretty loyal kid, but kind of sucks because Jed Fish just up and left because of
What?
something
Yeah, but
wrong
that's
with
that's
Arizona's
the
front
thing.
office.
It's not like he took in my opinion, I don't think he took a job that was like an upgrade really, because
It's like if Arizona's
because
here, Washington's like there.
well,
Maybe.
Yeah.
the only thing I can think is Washington's going to the Big Ten. Maybe that's your decision on that, but and I think this might have been the only place he thought, okay, this is where I can get out of Arizona and move up, because maybe he wants to go to the SEC or maybe go to a bigger team or something like that or get more money. And I think that was the decision to go to Washington. So it makes sense. I get it, but they were pretty much in line to win the Big 12 next year. Arizona is so. This new guy coming in, what's his name again? Brent Brennan from San Jose State is Arizona's new head coach. Okay. First of all, he's coming from San Jose State. That doesn't fucking scream experience to me, or a good coach. Because the only San Jose State I remember is the San Jose State that like went like 0-11 or 0-12.
Yeah.
So like I don't know how good that's going to be for them, but you have to also look at it and say, okay, maybe this guy is actually like, maybe he matches what they want. And maybe he can recruit well. Like there's different factors that go into it. And I don't know a lot about this guy. I'm not going to like claim that I do because I don't. But there has to be a reason why he got hired. He maybe was an up and comer, like hot young guy, you know, something like that. Pause though. Yeah. And so he's got the feet though. He has that wide receiver. He has a guys on defense that are still going to be there. I like their chances to win the Big 12 still. It's a little less than it was when Jeff Fish was there, but it's still up there. Now, we know that I already talked about it earlier. T-Rob from Alabama accepted the co-defensive coordinator role with Georgia. Pretty big for Georgia to get him. Huge recruiter. Recruited Caleb Downs. I think the kid, what's that kid's name? Brennan Des Ricks or something from Alabama as well. Yeah. He recruited him. He has a really good pedigree in Southeast Georgia and like just the Southeast in general. He's recruited really well. So that'll be good for Georgia, having someone like that as a co-defensive coordinator. Glenn Schumann's still going to be the guy calling plays on Saturdays, but, that Tuesday through Thursday when they're looking at film, scheming up their defense, I think he'll be the guy that's going to be doing that aspect of it. So huge role for him. Gets to put his flag down in the University of Georgia as a co-defensive coordinator on a up-and-coming, Georgia team. I say up-and-coming because they're still not at the level of like Bama, but or Bama used to be. But, it still is pretty up-and-coming program that I think Kirby's going with, that I think is really going to look good on his resume if he wants to be a head coach, because it's looking like that. Every step that he's taken has been a progression. So that's been pretty good for him. And then, you have all these like Washington and Bama have a lot of portal entries and decommitments from high school kids. Y'all want to go ahead and talk about that a little bit? I don't know who has who on that, but
Brennan can cover that. He's
I wasn't looking at the high school kids. But
that's fine. It's not a huge thing. I mean, I know there's an offensive lineman that's been committed to.
I will say
Alabama
we did lose. We two biggest names out for Alabama. Obviously Ryan Williams, 5-star wide receiver, was class of 2025. Now reclassified to 2024. He's decommitted, but he was on an unofficial visit at Alabama last night, talking with Coach DeBoer. So that's big news. They got cold weather, snow up there. He's going to be stuck there for a little bit. So hopefully he hangs out for a few days, gets to meet the guys, the new coaches, and talks with them. And then 20 other 5-star wide receiver, 2025, Jamie French, absolute stud. He decommitted, unfortunately, but he's 2025. So hopefully, Alabama and Kalen DeBoer shows what they can do next year. Maybe he reaches back out. Maybe he keeps in contact with guys and, could see a recruit. I'm not too worried about the 2025 guys, just because, obviously they're going to open their recruitment back up, see what Alabama's capable of doing. And if they feel like it's still a good option, I think they'll come back. But obviously with the Travaris Robertson move, I mean, you have 4 DBs that have hit the transfer portal from Alabama already. Cornerback Trey Amos, which I'm super upset about because
that kid
the way he came into the SEC championship and covered Brock Bowers and freaking Lad McConkey after Xavier McKinstry had gotten knocked out with a concussion protocol. Like, I mean, that guy came in and played some valuable snaps for us, and I was really excited to see him play. But yeah, another cornerback, Antonio Kite, didn't get too much playing time this year, but obviously former 4-star guy that is a stud. Des Ricks, former five-star guy. I just saw something earlier. They have him crystal balled to Texas A&M. Somebody crystal balled him, and then we mentioned earlier Jake Pope, DB to Georgia. Also, you have tight end Amari Nyblack, who was another guy I was super excited to have back. I mean, God, he was up and coming.
That kid has potential to be like one of the best tight ends to come out of college, depending on the next year or two, 2 years that he has. But that kid is good.
And then another one that really hurt, but I kind of saw it coming. I think this was in the works. I heard this was already in the works before Saban retired, but Isaiah Bond to Texas, 007, 4th and 31, that one hurts. But from his standpoint, I see the business decision side of his choice. I mean, you can stay and play with Jalen Milroe in a run-heavy offense. Maybe we open it up. Hopefully we open it up a lot more with DeBoer. But, I mean, when you get to go play with an NFL prospect guy like Quinn Ewers and potentially be the number one guy in that offense, I mean, I see his reasoning behind making that choice. And like I said, that might have been in the works before Saban even retired. So, I mean,
it seemed like that was already kind of in the works. And especially what we're talking about with Jalen Milroe not being a passer, you have Quinn Ewers who is. So it's kind of the same thing like what Jermaine Burton did a couple years ago with Georgia, kind of left Georgia, which he didn't really get along with Stetson Bennett anyway. They had like a fight or whatever, like actually a physical altercation, but not saying that Jalen Milroe and Isaiah Bond did. But I know like when you don't mesh well with the quarterback or you don't feel like that offense is going to suit you as a wide receiver, you have the option to move on now with his transfer portal. And I think it was a good decision on his part to kind of go to Texas, although it sucks for you guys to have that. So that's one that sucks. And I know Washington lost Will Rogers back into the portal because Kalen DeBoer left. So that kind of makes sense. We don't really know where he's going to go. Not a lot of options for him. He's on his last year, so he's going to go somewhere where he has to start. So I don't imagine him going anywhere where he has to compete. Now, there are jobs still open. I know that is Michigan have a
I think, JJ just he's going to the NFL now. I don't know.
But isn't their backup's that guy that Jim Harbaugh said was Jalen Milroe somehow?
Yeah.
And then great for a Jim Harbaugh offense.
Right. But I mean, that's the only place I can think of that doesn't have a secure quarterback yet. Auburn doesn't have a quarterback. In my opinion, Peyton Thorne's not a fucking good quarterback. I don't care what anybody says. The guy's not good.
Yeah, agreed.
So you have Peyton Thorne there. Maybe Auburn. They haven't even looked at the portal for a quarterback. Haven't even taken any visits from them. So that's confusing. And then Brennan, there were a couple other portal entries from Washington. Do you remember who they were?
Yeah, so you got the DB, Jabbar Muhammad, absolute stud. Their star safety over there. So praise the Lord, the one person I do not want to see go is Caleb Downs because he's going to be a keystone of this team just moving forward. We have Tyler Booker, Deontay Lawson on the defensive side, and Tyler Booker's offensive line, but Deontay Lawson, our linebacker, and then Caleb Downs. Those are the guys that are really going to keep this locker room together and be the keystones of the future Alabama program. So hopefully,
fucking Alabama. We were talking about Washington, Bubba.
Yeah, but I mean, I was just saying to join back, like saying if we can keep Caleb Downs and then bring in safety Jabbar Muhammad, that'd be huge for our defense.
Yeah,
noting all the DBs that we are going to lose. And then they have one of their starting offensive linemen, Parker Brailsford, who was a part of that Joe Moore Award winner offensive line, played all 14 games, 15 games, however many games they ended up playing, 15. So he's in the transfer portal. Big news. Hopefully Alabama can go get both of those guys. And then wide receiver Jeremy Bernard, who had 34 catches, 419 yards, and 2 TDs behind those 3 absolute studs that Washington had. So those are, I mean, pretty good stats for a
Pretty
guy
good
who
stats
was
being behind
fourth on the list.
Mhm.
Yeah, so those are big
Extremely
ones coming
good.
out of Washington, and I mean you may expect to see more coming from there. So hopefully they want to
Yeah.
follow their head coach.
Yeah, I mean, I
doesn't
think it
seem
would
like
make
a
sense
lot.
for them
Just
too.
looking at On3 right now, it doesn't seem like a lot that are in the transfer portal currently. I don't know
no.
what the deadline is for them, but
Well, they get the extra 30 days, just like
okay.
the Alabama players have been getting.
See, yeah, but they say 30 days, but in reality, it'll be like till Thursday because if they want to transfer this spring, because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
Well, you
at
gotta get enrolled.
drop-ins,
Yeah, you gotta
at drop-ins
enroll.
Thursday.
Exactly.
So if they don't have their classes by Thursday, they're not going to be able to get there till the summer. So they can go ahead and transfer if they want, or enter their name in the transfer portal and say they're transferring somewhere in the summer, but they
Yeah.
actually can't transfer until the summer if they don't get in by Thursday. So little hairy there, but just a little tidbit for you guys in case you didn't know that. Let's see. That's kind of it. That's all I want to talk about with Nick Saban. Now, I did want to kind of bring up some of the other news that's been going on, specifically Jim Harbaugh. You know, we just talked about him with Michigan. He did interview for the head coaching job with the Chargers. It's pretty significant there. We kind of knew he was going to interview for one or two jobs in the NFL and kind of test the waters again. He does it every year for the past couple of years, so we knew that was going to happen. Doesn't look right now that he's leaning that way. I don't even know if the Chargers are leaning his way, but that's kind of not where he's leaning. I think they did, draw up a contract with Michigan. I thought it was funny that he put a clause in his contract with Michigan that says he can't be fired if any sanctions come
No,
down
I think
against
that's
him.
I think that's what he's looking for.
Association.
I don't think that's in it officially right now, but that's what he wants. If he's going to come back to Michigan, that's what he wants. in
Didn't
his
originally
contract.
Michigan give him a
Which is-
contract?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's a rough
that said,
draft.
he
It's a
can't
rough
leave
draft.
for the NFL
Yeah.
or something like that. Like originally,
Yeah, so there.
Yeah.
Yeah, originally it was he can't leave for the NFL for 5 years or something.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
And I guess his counter was, okay, I won't leave, but you can't fire me. So
That's
it's
job
like-
security right there.
I mean, I've never seen a coach be like, all right, I want the contract extension, but I'm going to put a clause in there that you cannot fire me because I'm going to get caught cheating for show.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
They might
that's
suspend me for a whole
apparently
year.
he's been lawyering up too, so that's something to watch, I guess. If he,
I mean, we know it's going to be something to watch. I don't know if it's going to be this upcoming year, this summer, next year. Like you don't know with how long the NCAA takes to like do these kind of things.
yeah,
And then I did want to bring up. We talked about it a while ago, a couple weeks ago. Cam Ward, put out that like 4-second video where he was like, "I'm going to the NFL," and that was it. So everyone was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, for sure." And then he never got an agent, though. I think he was still testing the waters with Florida State and Miami. And then DJ, you committed to Florida State. He kind of waited around, and I don't think he loved his draft grade. And so he decided, I'm going to go to Miami. I think it was 2 days ago he decided that, or 3 days ago, sometime last week. But he decided he's going to go to Miami now, and I think that helps Miami save face a little bit with recruits and transfers with the wide receivers and stuff that they've gotten and offensive weapons. Now they're like, okay, now we have someone we for sure know can throw to us. That helps them on that aspect. So it does help Miami a little bit. Cam Ward can hopefully improve his draft stock and be a top guy next year. But we're going to kind of see what's going to happen with that. I'm excited to see. I mean, we have still so much of the offseason left. I mean, by next episode, we have no idea what is going to be going on in the college football world, because who would have thought that Nick Saban was going to retire this quick? I thought he still had a couple years left in him. And so that's the thing, when it comes to college football, it's so random. Things can happen all the time, just randomly, and that's what the great thing is about it. I love it. It's a lot more eventful, in my opinion, than the NFL. Except for the trade deadline in the NFL, that's still crazy. But anything else you guys want to say before we wrap up, or about like Nick Saban or new hire or anything?
Oh yeah, Brennan, what's your favorite memory of Saint Nick?
I mean, I'd have to say there's probably two that are my favorite, and unfortunately, they're both against Georgia. So I'm sorry, Zach. But obviously, second and 26 in the national championship. I mean, the guts on him to pull Jalen Hurts, the starting quarterback who had lost 2 games in 2 seasons, to throw in a freshman quarterback in hopes to bring us back. We were down 20-7 at halftime, and Tua lit it up, and I mean, threw that touchdown pass to Devontae Smith to win the national championship. That was number one, and then number two would have to be the next year in the SEC championship against Georgia when, Jalen Hurts made the decision to stay with Alabama, and knowing he was going to be second string, and SEC championship came around and Tua went down. We were down in that game, and Jalen Hurts had to come in, and sure enough, led us to a dub in the SEC championship. And that was and Nick Saban practically was crying in the post-game interview, just talking about Jalen Hurts and what he meant to the program and the team and all the guys in there. And he, speaking that Jalen Hurts was a dying breed of player who's sticking true to, what he knows. So those were two great memories, man. And then obviously 4th and 31 will probably go down as a big time memory too. Last season, last dub against Auburn and Jordan Hare. So those are three great memories I can spit off the top of my head.
Yeah, man.
Zach, what's your favorite defeat moment against Saban?
No, I was gonna say the 2nd and 26 was pretty much like, I guess that's, I can go back all the way to the SEC championship, like 2011, 2012, when we were kind of going down the field to go score with like no time left on the clock. We went to go throw an out route toward the sidelines. Our wide receiver slips. Instead of just like not catching the ball, he catches it, goes down, no time left, don't have enough time to spike it, and we lose the game. That was my first experience. I guess that was my first experience as a Georgia fan, like really remembering, like, damn. Like I remember that's how I felt at that moment.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I really, as a Georgia fan, I was so young that I felt like sad about a game or something. So I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna be a fan forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's kind of those moments where you kind of realize that. And that was my first one. And then the 2nd and 26, I remember exactly where I was. I didn't even go out to watch that game. I lived in Athens. I didn't even go out to watch that game. I actually watched it on my couch by myself. I was so nervous. And then we end up losing on like a safety getting, biting so far to the middle instead of, watching the quarterback's eyes. So that was pretty upsetting. We had him at 2nd 26 after we sacked him on first down for like 10 yards, 16 yards, something like that. I was like, oh my God, we're going to fucking beat him. And then that happened, and it was pure defeat. And I remember after that game, I got a call from my brother, and he said, hey, can you come pick me and Brennan up from downtown? And I was like, I remember I said specifically, I was like, if Brennan says one word, I'm going to fucking punch him in the face when we're in his car. And he didn't say anything. It was a good ride. But no, I remember that specifically.
I can tell a funny story from that game. We were in the bars. I'm probably the only person in Athens with an Alabama jacket on in the entire city.
That's dangerous.
And
not.
So if you recall, we had like a 27-yard field goal to win the game with time expiring. And there's a kid next to me. He shakes my hand. He's like, man, good game. Y'all won fair and square. Like, go win the national championship. And I'm like, dude, I don't know if you've ever watched the history of Alabama kickers, but this ain't guaranteed right here. Sure enough, he fucking shanks it left. And the kid looks at me and he's just like, fuck you, pussy. And I'm but yeah, when we won that game, man, when Tua threw that pass and we won that game, I heard about 3 beer bottles get smashed against the wall in the back of the bar. And I said, yep, that's my cue to get the hell out of here. So I put my hand over that. Yeah. I put my hand over the Alabama A on my jacket. And I said, I'm getting out of here. Take me home.
Yeah, man. There's a lot of things that kind of go back into it. I mean, obviously, going to school there during those pretty big years for Georgia and Alabama and that rivalry was pretty insane. Also, Brennan being there during that time, beating us, and then my senior year, us beating them, to win the national championship was just like a full circle. Because my freshman year we lost to them in the national championship. Yeah. My senior year we beat them. So pretty ecstatic for him to be gone, in my opinion. I mean, that's a pretty big deal for us. But
Yeah.
it was awesome. Every game between them was always like, oh my God, who's gonna win? You never know. For a while there, I thought like we're never gonna beat them, and then we finally beat them in the national championship, and it was like, okay, the curse is broken. Then we lose to them again this past season, but. It sucks for someone like that to go because you love those rivalries, but I still think there will be a rivalry with like Alabama, and especially SEC, East and West breaking up and it just being one conference now and playing everybody. We're going to play Alabama again this season. So it'll be pretty cool, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show. I hate that Saban's retiring, but it has to happen. All good things must come to an end.
Like the show.
Brennan Rich. Exactly. Brennan Rich, thanks for coming out again. We're going to do this every week, I think. I think we haven't discussed the exact parameters on off-season and how we're doing it. But I know we're going to figure it out. And I think next episode we'll have more of a clear view on what we're going to be doing. But thanks for tuning in, guys. We're on TikTok now as well as YouTube. We do these live. They're also posted after on YouTube, so you can go back and watch them if you do miss them. But thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.
All right. See you all.
Later.